Hello and welcome to Gritty Reboot, the show where we make fun of TV's dark side. I'm Hunter Markham, and I'm here with my co-hosts Kevin and Sarah. And we took a little bit of a hiatus behind the scenes, so this is the first time we've been recording in a couple weeks, guys.
It is. Last week we were moving, so we could not have even located our microphone last Sunday, so here we are. Now we know where it is. We're moving up in the world.
I think this is our first recording episode since COVID went from being a potential thing to being very much a thing.
Yes, we're recording this on Easter Sunday in 2020, so this is like full lockdown, quarantine. This episode that we're going to discuss has quarantine, but the main thing I wanted to say was, have you ever been in a room or like been in your house, you left it for a little while, and then when you came back, you're like, this room kind of like smells worse than I remembered because I've been away for a little while?
Yes.
Because that's what it was like going back and watching Riverdale again after having a break from it.
You're not wrong.
Has it always been this bad? Yeah, because you give a little bit of background on what we do on this show and what the hell we've gotten ourselves into.
Which one of us is you?
Whatever.
I'll be me. So this is a show where we make fun of television shows that we think are ridiculous. So right now we're focused on the CW show Riverdale. We covered season 1 and then we skipped season 2 entirely and went ahead to season 3 and flew blind for the first 2 episodes. I feel like now we've figured out pretty much everything that probably happened in season 2.
Yeah, the show doesn't give a lot of breadcrumbs, and it constantly makes no sense and disregards everything that came before, so what did we really miss anyway?
I have a rant about the Sisters of Quiet Mercy later.
Yeah, I think one of the toughest parts to figure out is just, did we miss this, or are they just shoehorning this in? Because we know that the show does that, and so sometimes it's like, it's possible that was covered, or not. Who knows? Who can say?
Yeah, the show is... Maybe it's written by amnesiacs who forget everything from script to script and just, they're like, we'll kind of start fresh this time, or they're consistently rebranding. I don't know what it is, but we've gotten ourselves into what I would say not the high point of the series in this episode.
This would be my second weakest episode this season, yeah.
It is very timely because it's called Outbreak, and there's this whole quarantine deal that comes up in this episode, which I guess we're going to get more of. So we didn't have enough of that from news and real life, so now we have to deal with it on Riverdale.
And what a realistic quarantine. It's just like what's happening now.
I am sure that they will handle this situation with all the poignancy and tact that we know the writers are capable of.
Not at all.
It's actually funny, when COVID first broke out, Sarah actually showed me the movie Outbreak because she's a big fan and I'd never seen it or even heard of it. And it was like a really fun, cool movie, so...
I've actually always really loved virus movies and just medical stuff in general. So, yeah, I've kind of been waiting for this moment my whole life. It's really an exciting time.
True crime and medicine, those are the two things that freak me out. I can't even watch footage of surgery because it scares me to think of like cutting into a live person. So
what's that? Hunter, I thought for sure that you were the biggest Dr. Quinn Medicine Woman fan I'd ever met.
Because that was one of the 3 shows that we were allowed to watch in my house growing up.
That was one of the 3 shows that was ever on when I was a kid because we didn't have cable, so I sure watched the heck out of it.
Yes.
It had everything that was promised. There was a doctor, she was named Quinn, and she was a medicine woman.
How about, we get into this episode, I know that we do some cultural references, and Kevin, this week you put together clips for the cultural references.
Yeah,
for us.
Oh my god, it's been so long. Because there were the 2 weeks where we didn't have any clips, and then we took a break for 2 weeks, so... It was like the first time in a month or something where I actually had to go through and clip things, and I was learning to walk again.
So I will play these now because this episode had quite a few.
I've brewed you a pot of vintage Narcissus tea, and our family physician, Dr. Caligari, is on call. Oh, TT, ship's fever couldn't keep me away. Though my powers as Dauphine of Riverdale High aren't absolute yet, I am CC'd on all school board emails.
I've seen enough episodes of Narcos to know this scheme.
It's JB now, Kid Kerouac.
There's a bounty on your hip and you left more breadcrumbs coming here than a chubby kid in a fairy tale. There's nothing that you or your little Lord of the Flies crew or Jughead here can do.
That place is the Hellmouth of Riverdale. We have to break her out of there. Shades of the Legion of Doom.
Kid Kerouac, my favorite DC Comics hero. He is the sidekick of Dharma Bum Man, so yeah.
That's the really obvious one. The Dr. Caligari reference that Cheryl says about him being the Blossom family physician was really stupid because it really stands out, and it took like one Google search to realize that's this old-time horror movie that they're just shoehorning into this.
Yeah, it's a great horror movie. I had like a horror and literature class in college that showed it. So Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, like one of the first horror films, super obvious reference even if you don't know it, just like it's so easy to tell that's a reference because the name sticks out so much.
Mm-hmm.
The one I didn't know was a reference until you sent the clip over to me was Hellmouth, which I just thought, that's just like kind of a cool term. But apparently, according to the internet, it's a Buffy thing.
What?
How did you not know that?
Wait, this is a Buffy thing? Someone explain.
Kevin, you've seen Buffy a million times, but
I know. Yes.
I've seen like 2.5 episodes of Buffy, and I don't even think I was sober for them. So what I retained was probably little to none.
Yeah, the Hellmouth is like, I don't know, I guess it's kind of like the central antagonistic force in the Buffy show. It's where a lot of the evil comes from.
The first episode of Buffy is called Welcome to the Hellmouth.
Oh my god. I don't know if I've actually seen the first episode of Buffy ever.
There's a few good episodes in the first season. It's one of those things where you have to like warn people, like maybe don't watch the whole first season because you're going to get a really weird perception of the show. They hadn't really figured themselves out yet, but the pilot's solid.
Also, their budget in the first season was like $6, so
yeah.
It looks the worst compared to all the other seasons.
It was made in 97, but it looks like it was made in like 87. You know what I mean? Like it's rough.
Wasn't there some episode in the first season where there's like a praying mantis or snake lady monster?
No, that's the second season, I believe.
Okay, that's pretty much the only episode of Buffy I remember.
But yeah, so Ship's fever is typhus, and is there anything else that needs explaining?
Cheryl refers to herself as Dauphine or Dauphina of Riverdale.
Yes.
I just thought that was a French term for like a prince or princess.
Not just a prince or princess. That's like the specific position of heir apparent.
Okay. It's something like that.
Yeah.
So,
which is an odd thing to call yourself when you are the person who is actually in charge.
I think it's just French for like a really beautiful dolphin.
Yes. Well, it is that too. I don't know why the French nobility wanted to be like dolphins, but
they're just so sleek, you know?
So, this episode opens with a Jughead monologue where he's talking about things that are happening at Riverdale High. And he's like, it was a day like any other. But at this point in the story, he's literally 500 miles away from Riverdale.
He is several states over in Toledo.
Yeah, I have no idea. It would make so much more sense for anybody else that is in Riverdale to narrate this.
We know Alice likes to jump in on narrating duties every once in a while.
But hey, they just have Jughead narrating while, I guess, kids at Riverdale High are doing fizzle rocks and getting high off their ass. And then everyone on the cheerleading squad, except for Cheryl, has a mass seizure in the hallway.
And I just have to say, I don't think this new cheer routine is going to impress the judges at semifinals.
It's not very coordinated, no, yeah. And immediately there's an investigation, so we start right off with a little search and seizure.
But, okay, where's Evelyn, the creepy farm girl? Because they didn't show her in this episode, and they made it seem like... This is the first time we've seen people having seizures where this girl is not within 10 feet of them. So suddenly, everything that we suspected up to this point is thrown out the window.
Oh, see, I was assuming she was just, like, in a locker, just, like, making eye contact through the little vents.
That's probably better, but then I've been trying to scramble to find some sort of new reason why everyone around Riverdale High has seizures out of nowhere, but I've got nothing because...
Well, the really weird thing is they act like the seizures themselves are contagious, even though there's like nothing else but seizures happening.
Mm-hmm.
They begin to treat it like a pandemic. So the more interesting story, I think, from last time, we liked Betty being in the Sisters of Quiet Mercy Asylum, and it ended last episode, if we can remember that far back, where she was like drugged out of her mind and seemed totally sucked into the Gargoyle King's web of deceit and was brainwashed. By the start of this episode, she's back to her like crafty sleuth self.
Yeah, turns out it was all a ruse, and yet even still, this storyline is way more compelling.
Yeah, but I mean, last episode we talked about how, oh, it'd be really cool if the Riverdale writers could keep this creepy asylum thing going for longer, but they couldn't. They kind of shat the bed on this storyline and took the most compelling thing that was happening in the show and were like, well, that's done.
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of thinking towards the end of last episode that Betty was faking it, but I wasn't sure.
Well, the thing that really threw us off is, like, she hallucinated the Gargoyle King behind the physician who was doing, like, the mental test on her.
Well, she says, I mean, it sounds like she did take that first dose, and then she stops. Because she tells Ethel, like, I saw him too when I was on the drugs.
Yeah, but it's just like, that was the thing that made us think, like, oh, she's stuck in the cycle now. But nope, she just easily breaks that.
Which, that ruins all suspense, and it's a character that we care about, that we know is a smart and strong and capable person, and seeing them be put in a position where things go terribly wrong, it's interesting to watch and makes you want them to get out. But they don't have any sort of outside force do that. She doesn't need any help. She's just like, oh, like, Betty can overcome this.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would have been interesting if they had switched it up where, like, Ethel got food poisoning or something and ended up puking up the drugs, and then she was the one to get sober and had to try to get Betty on her side. I think that would have been more compelling.
That's a really good idea, actually.
No one asked me. So.
Yeah, that's a way better idea, because I think something when writing strong characters, there's this opposite trope that people will fall into. Instead of being like, this person is realistically strong, they become practically a superhero, and that's almost what Betty is at this point, where you kind of don't have to worry about her.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you mean like how Archie is good at literally everything?
Yeah. Yes, he's great at getting threatened and almost killed all the time. Because he and Jughead are on the run, and they make it to Toledo, to where Jughead's mom runs a junkyard.
Yeah, and we learn that his mom is Rizzo from Grease. No, okay, it's just Gina Gershon.
Who was in Showgirls and Face Off.
And such a better, I mean, a great actress. She does a great job. You know, it's interesting that Archie got Molly Ringwald and Jughead got Gina Gershon because, you know, I guess they figured out where to put the money in terms of the acting chops. It's a very different experience watching those scenes.
We also finally meet Jellybean, who is maybe one of the best parts of this episode.
Oh, so good. I love her, and I hope she is in every episode now. I don't even care why they put her in. It could be really contrived. I assume it will be because Riverdale. Just do it. I don't care.
I mean, she can move back to Riverdale with FP and Jughead, and we can suddenly have her in the mix because, yeah, she's every bit as cool as promised in previous episodes when we heard that she's, like, into rock music and kicks ass.
Yeah, I mean, she can just slingshot herself over there, whatever.
The way this show operates, in, like, the next episode, she'll probably be, like, a chief CDC consultant assigned to Riverdale.
My name is Jellybean Fauci.
I think my favorite scene, you guys probably could have guessed from all the texts and video clips I was sending you, was the scene where, because all the cheerleaders had seizures, Tony, Cheryl's girlfriend, is one of the people afflicted with the seizure, and she wakes up in Cheryl's giant bed in Thornhill Mansion, and Cheryl has the worst lines in the show, and it's incredible.
I'm cuckoo bananas for you. Obvi. Someone got paid to write that, and they are older and more successful than any of us are.
Yeah, that is full on a 46-year-old being like, this is how kids talk.
Oh, she said obvi?
Obvi.
Yes.
Holy crap, that was not what I heard. Did you have to put the subtitles on for that?
We always watch with subtitles.
Yeah, I'm weird like that. Sarah gets annoyed at it sometimes, but
But for notes, I think it's good because sometimes I catch stuff from the subtitles that I wouldn't have caught otherwise.
Yeah, because I
So-
misheard that. Because Cheryl did the patented thing where she says a line, pauses for 7 to 12 breaths, and then adds another word. And I thought she said Humphy.
Cuckoo bananas for you, Humphy.
Is Tony's middle name Humphrey? And this is like some sort of weird derivative nickname? I had no clue, but hey, Cheryl asks Tony to move into Thornhill with her because she's 17, and I guess she doesn't need to consult her mom about her significant other moving into their house.
Does Tony
You're right,
have a
Hunter.
mom? That
It's pretty
hasn't been
adorable.
established.
Oh, weird. And my favorite line was, besides the cuckoo bananas thing, was my 4-poster bed is your 4-poster bed, which I wish had been rendered in Cheryl's Spanish of mi 4-poster bed as su 4-poster bed. If she has the same grasp of Spanish as me, that's as good as she could do.
I bumped on that same line and wrote it down and laughed every time that it came on because it's just too amazing. No one talks like that. I just can't.
yeah, it's it's something.
But Tony agrees to move in with her, and then there's this scene of them in bed where they kind of pull it out of focus, and they're clearly making out in the background, and the Foley effects are like, they're really bad kiss noises. Like, yeah, it's like if one person was making kiss noises in an empty room, and they're like, that's pretty good, that'll do.
Meanwhile, back at the Sisters of Quiet Mercy, Alice visits Betty in the asylum and says, "Hey, you look like shit. Glad you're safe here, though," while like a giant Gargoyle King love poster looms behind her.
Does Alice have no situational awareness? Because Ethel's poster, I paused on it, is like 5 or 6 different images of the Gargoyle King, and it's like, love you forever, till death. How did she not see this one? The only thing in Betty's room besides Betty and a cot is this terrifying poster.
It's so bizarre and there's just no reason for Alice to even be there. That's all she does is just tell Betty she looks terrible and leave. I don't get why that scene even happened.
It is so weird, but I guess it inspired Betty to something? I don't know.
I didn't even think about that, but you're absolutely right. There was no need for this scene. I think I was just happy because I believe before that there was some scene with Veronica where she said words or something, and I was just like, oh, cut away to someone else.
Oh yeah, before that is a scene where there's just more of the weird fake parent drama with Veronica, and I just hate it so much, and I want it to be over.
Oh, right, that scene. I don't understand the Riverdale writers' process because, so last episode of the episode before, Veronica moved out against her parents' wishes. In this episode, they bring her back into the house against her wishes, only to tell her that they want to send her out of Riverdale, and Veronica's like, whoa, you can't do that to me. So, like, we're just pinballing between motivations, and everything is changing and topsy-turvy. I don't understand.
Did either of you get snagged on the line where Hiram and Hermione are like, Veronica, you had a seizure. You and 8 other cheerleaders had a seizure. It's because of all the stress you've been under because Archie is gone and you're running a speakeasy. But what about the other 7 girls?
They are also devastated by Archie being gone and how much work Veronica has to do for the speakeasy.
I mean, actually, that's probably kind of plausible considering this show. It completely makes sense in the Riverdale universe that all of the cheerleading squad is in love with Archie.
If you go more than 6 days without seeing Archie's abs, you just have a seizure. That's just what happens. Your brain cannot handle it.
Once you see him, you can't go without. He's like a drug. Then Veronica, I think she's already moving on because she's in Pops with new Reggie.
Oh, yeah. And just every time they are in the same room, I'm just, when are they gonna fuck? When
Yeah,
is this
you can
gonna
cut
happen?
the sexual tension between them with string, a dull spoon, maybe a feather.
Hand wave.
But they're in Pops. The whole RROTC gang comes in, and they're all high on Fizzle Rocks. And somehow, new Reggie knows everything about the drug traffic, where he's like, oh, they're high on this new drug called Fizzle Rocks. It's being distributed by the Gargoyles. And
Did you like later on when Reggie's like, apparently they're giving it away for free? And Rick is like, oh, I've seen Narcos. I know that that's a thing they do to hook people. It's like, yes, this is a very commonly known thing, Veronica. People who haven't seen Narcos also know this.
they just had to shoehorn in a reference to a popular show for no good reason. And then Veronica asked Reggie to suss some things, which I'm sure Reggie thought meant something else entirely.
Reggie has like half a point less than like a one-track mind.
He's like, I'll sauce whatever you want. Point me in the right direction.
I mean, yeah, I sussed 2 times this morning, but I could go again.
Oh.
Where are we now that we had... Oh, Betty was visited by Alice, and then she gets the good idea to lock Ethel up in the Gargoyle King chamber in order to detox her of all the drugs.
Yeah, she baits her really easily, too, with just like an, OMG, the Gargoyle King is totally my boyfriend. Why don't you go into this empty room I can lock and find out if what I said is true?
I actually do really love that scene, though. I love Betty pretending to be super into the Gargoyle King and loving how much it pisses off Ethel, because that's just very relatable. Mm-hmm. I was also loving how much it pissed off Ethel.
It all works really, really seamlessly, though. She just tricks Ethel into this room, locks her in, and 10 minutes later, she's like, Ethel, your whole life and belief system's a fucking lie. Gargoyle King isn't real. It's just a statue, and you're high off your ass. And Ethel's like, okay.
Yeah, she takes it like a champ.
Yeah. But they do point out that there is an actual Gargoyle King that has been running around town, and I still can't wait to find out who is cosplaying the Gargoyle King at night. Like, someone is. That's a real thing. Because people who were not high saw him. Or her.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I know we hit on before how this show just disregards everything from the past and does things like Betty's in this asylum and it's really tense. And then this episode, oh, Betty's out of the asylum. It feels like each episode is the season premiere of a new season.
Yeah.
Where they're like, we're setting up 12 things, and then they're just like, next episode, like, okay, those are gone, we're setting up 12 new things.
Especially last episode. Like, it did remind me of like 40 Hours in America, the season 3 premiere of West Wing, in that sense of like, it's a traveling thing, it's the middle of nowhere. Like, there's these weird things that feel, yeah, like season premieres. Huh.
Especially when they just like you keep saying, Hunter, they never really remember anything they brought up, because we learn by the end of this episode, pretty much every female character in Riverdale has been in the Sisters of Quiet Mercy at some point. Alice, Polly, I think Penelope was adopted from there. Veronica was there at some point. Cheryl was confirmed to be in a gay conversion ward. And literally none of them ever knew about this Gargoyle King thing, which has apparently been going on at the Sisters of Quiet Mercy since its literal founding.
Also, it's only women that we know of who've ever been in there, but at the end of the show, they show men running out. There were boys in there too, and I'm like, what the hell? Where were they?
That was completely out of left field, because we never saw that before, and we were led to believe from all context clues that this was a female only, like a home for wayward girls. And then all of a sudden they flipped that on us, but again...
And didn't mention it whatsoever. This show just has no continuity at all, even within an episode. It's amazing.
Yeah, so going back to your point, Kevin, we find out in this episode that Griffins and Gargoyles, the RPG, started at the Sisters of Quiet Mercy, and it's been going on there for ages. I don't know who's printing all the rule books and distributing them, if it's like an Amazon self-publishing sort of deal and it's just a fulfillment house. But Someone has to have actually made the physical game sets. And that has to be a company, unless the Sisters of Quiet Mercy have some sort of printing press.
I'm kind of into it. There aren't that many female board game producers. There aren't nearly enough. And so I just really support the sisters doing this. I would probably buy this on Kickstarter just based on that alone. I search for women, like board games made by women all the time because I want to support. So totally would.
See, this is another thing. I never thought about that. I never actually thought about, like, oh, someone made this board game. I was just like, that's the Monopoly man. I'm going to buy Park Place.
To be fair, it wasn't a person who made Monopoly. It was the devil himself.
It was, yeah.
Am I the only person that enjoys that game?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I want to know what's wrong with you.
I like destroying my friendships and family relationships.
What I really need is a boring 4-hour game where I suffer the worst parts of capitalism uninterrupted.
It's like a short version of an Ayn Rand book. Anyway, so this is where we start getting a whole bunch of quarantine stuff, because the day after the seizures, guys in blue hazmat suits start busting into Riverdale High School and dragging out students.
Yeah, knockoff CDC wannabes.
This is the worst plan, though. Like, to just try to round up the cheerleading team by a blitz attack in a hallway where they can all run away. Like, why wouldn't you just call them to the principal's office?
They could have done a million things, but Cheryl tells Veronica to run whenever she gets called out for, I guess, they wanted to haul her away like E.T., but I don't know how Veronica's going to sprint down the hall in her customary 6-inch high heels.
And this is also when Cheryl tells Veronica that there's going to be a school board meeting later that day that they can crash. And the school board meeting just turns out to be just the Lodges, Penelope Blossom, and Alice Cooper. And that's it, I think?
Yeah, that's not how school board meetings are at all.
There's one other dude who we've never seen before who is in like the very, very last shot of that scene out of nowhere, and I didn't notice him until the second watch. And I'm like, where was this guy the whole time?
Yeah, apparently parent-teacher association meetings just happen in the principal's office because no one's interested.
School board, no.
School board,
these
sorry.
are elected officials.
Oh, okay.
They elected these parents, including a, felon. Cool.
Several felons.
Yeah. The important thing that we learned from that scene, though, is that Principal Weatherby's first name is Waldo. And maybe they had said that before, but I didn't know it. And Waldo Weatherby is an amazing name. He sounds like the eccentric librarian from a British sitcom. And I think in that show, he could still wear bolo ties, and it would be beautiful.
No, they've never said the first name Waldo before, because I hung up on that too.
Yup.
It's not a name you hear every single day.
It's not. Waldo Weatherby. It's a good one.
This whole scene is Hiram being like, we've got to shut down Riverdale High because it's crawling with infestation. Good thing we're meeting in Riverdale High to discuss it, though. And
that's when Veronica and Cheryl burst in, and Cheryl's all, how dare you use the CDC to quarantine my vixens, which I have to say is also the premise of my debut sci-fi novel, Quarantine with Lonely Vixens from Planet 69.
You've been reading too much fan fiction.
Or not enough. You decide, listener.
But we find out Southside High was shut down, and Hiram purchased the land under the pretense of building a prison, and Veronica starts cracking skulls and being like, he's turning it into a drug lab. Alice sits up and says, wait, I thought it was supposed to be a prison. No shit, do you think he's just gonna publicize, yeah, I'm turning into a drug lab, everybody?
I mean, in this show, it wouldn't be too surprising. Like, come to the grand opening of our newest drug factory.
You know the guy's awful. Suddenly, Alice, who's, for all of her faults, not a stupid character on this show, suddenly on this episode just takes a ride on the dipshit train. And
yeah,
it's kind of unforgivable at this point.
Yeah, all she does is just show up and go, huh? The whole episode, and it's really ridiculous. That's so out of character for her.
Archie is out of town, so they need a new person to sit around and just ask questions like, what, how, who, why, what's today?
And before they can get like real answers, Penelope gives a meaningful look and then has a seizure, which, I don't know, was that supposed to imply that they can control who's having seizures and when?
It's very unclear what's happening with the seizures. I was wondering if it was like some form of like the like medieval dancing mania thing. You know, like the thing where people were dancing themselves to death. Kevin's giving me a blank look right now. This is a thing that happened, I don't know, I want to say like 14th through 17th century or something like that. And it was like across Europe. And there were these communities where people would just start dancing and not stop until they died. And it was like a psychological contagion.
Oh, I've heard of that vaguely, but it made me think of the ghost dances in America in the 19th century that Native Americans were doing, and they would dance for ages, and that led to the Wounded Knee Massacre and a whole bunch of other fucked up ass shit.
Different, but also with dancing.
So I don't know. I was just the whole time like, they have like some kind of strain of narcotic drug mold that gives you seizures, because that's as much thought process as Riverdale deserves and how much they put into it.
Oh yeah, I'm sure I'm wrong, because that would make some sense if I was right. So
sorry, I just read ahead on the outline and saw your caption for what happens when Jellybean uses her slingshot.
I don't remember what. Oh yeah. Yes. So Penelope has a seizure. There's more Cheryl greatness, and I think most of my cringe lines that we get to at the end are from that scene. But Jughead and Archie, meanwhile, are hanging out at a junkyard where Jughead's mom exclusively employs youths with names such as Lugnut and Tailpipe.
Yes. And she only lets them stay because she mistakes Archie and Jughead for a couple, which, fair.
Archie Andrews?
Oh.
Guys, you sure grew up. Oh, so you two finally got together, huh? I always knew there was something going on between you.
she's a total Archhead stan. She's on AO3 all the time, just reading all the new fics.
Okay, but she's also horny for Archie.
Yes.
Who isn't? We've established.
Even Jellybean is horny for Archie in this scene. She's like, oh, you're single, huh?
Not to mention, I also dated his daughter.
Dated. As in no longer dating? As in single?
Relax, Jellybean.
And I guess, you know, even great characters need a flaw, so they found one.
No one has good taste at 11. It's fine. She'll get better.
I actually wanted to look more into this because knowing Riverdale, I was worried, like, they might actually put them together, right? So I did some digging. It turns out everyone is horrified by the idea of Jughead and Jellybean getting together.
Wait, Archie and Jellybean.
Archie and Jellybean getting together. There is a petition with 113 million signatories right now saying, please never pair them up, writers of Riverdale. So, yeah.
He's like 6 years older than her, which, especially at that age, I mean, it's weird. No, why would they do that? Why does there have to be a petition against that? She's like a middle schooler.
That's what's so telling, is that that's how little trust fans of the show have in the show, is that they're like, oh God, they might do pedophilia if we don't stop them.
You know, when you put it that way, warranted.
Yeah. I mean, it is. I get it.
Yeah. And so Gina Gershon sends Archie away so that she and Jughead can actually act opposite each other. And Archie is on his own for literally 5 minutes before Penny Peabody shows up and captures him.
Oh, can we talk about that shot? Because
yes,
Archie's walking through the junkyard and there's rows of cars that are probably 20 yards apart. We see from sort of a distance shot that there isn't a car or any sort of object within 10 feet in any direction from him. And then we punch in and Penny steps from literally just out of frame to like pop up behind him when there's clearly nothing she was hiding behind. He just has zero situational awareness and no peripheral vision.
That sounds right.
Yeah.
That sounds like him. I also kept asking Kevin throughout all of these scenes how old Penny was supposed to be, because Gina Gershon, Gladys, talks about Penny like she's, like they went to high school together. She's like, yeah, that Penny Peabody always had it out for me and your dad.
Penny Peabody.
Penny? That wench? She always had a beef about your father and I.
I thought she was supposed to be like maybe early 20s.
Me too.
I was way behind the curve on you guys. I totally thought she was a high schooler like everyone else, and they just like gotten like older casting.
She could have been high school. I had no idea. And so now I'm even more confused who the hell she is and how old she is.
I looked it up, and she is a shady attorney for the Serpents, which makes even less sense.
She's an attorney. Yeah, that...
How is she an attorney? Like, everything we've seen of her, she's walking around in, like, leather, she's brandishing Bowie knives, and she's running this gang of misfit, ragtag, Mad Max rejects. So...
Yeah, an attorney. I'm sorry, what were you thinking an attorney was?
Who goes to undergrad, goes to law school, gets their doctorate degree, and is like, well, it's time for me to settle down to a nice life of working for a drug lord doing petty street crime. Which
I'm gonna follow a kid to Toledo and then get up and a knife on him. Like, what?
Maybe
you
that's...
have options, Penny.
Look, I've never become an attorney, so I can't say for any certainty that, like, there isn't a random, like, child kidnapping portion of the bar exam.
It's so weird because I also thought she was young. I thought she was anywhere between 17 and 24 in this show.
Mm-hmm.
So much like Sarah, whenever there's this talk of like, oh, she's been around forever. It's super strange. Maybe this was all beautifully explained in season 2 over a several episode arc where they just delved into Penny's backstory and we really got to know her.
It was explained in season 2. I cannot vouch for beautifully or well, though.
I like to think that what we didn't see went swimmingly.
It was the Citizen Kane of, like, basic network TV teenager shows.
So Archie gets a knife put to his throat, and Penny is about to kill him when Jellybean pops out with a slingshot.
I'll give you the luxury of an open casket.
Not if I put you in one first.
And she knocks Penny unconscious with one stone from a slingshot, which I don't even think is possible.
I mean, I guess Penny just, like, needed to go down that badly. Or Jellybean's that good of a shot. Who knows?
But, I mean, if you get hit in the forehead with a pebble from a slingshot, you'd most likely just be like, ow, that really hurt. I'm angry. But we see her in the next scene with, like, I mean, I guess she could bleed from it, but the next scene she's, like, groggy, woken up, like, 15 minutes later from having that tiny rock thrown against her skull from a rubber band. It was...
I do think you're right, Hunter. I don't think that a small little pebble can hit with enough force to knock someone out without also, like, breaking through, basically becoming like a bullet, you know?
Yes. I had slingshots as a kid, and they were not lethal in any capacity.
I mean, I could go on a whole rant about how concussions are portrayed in media, but I'm not going to do that. But this one, I was like, she's fine.
Maybe it was just like she was so irritated and she has like a narcolepsy condition that we haven't seen yet. And like just becoming irritated triggered that narcolepsy, so she fainted.
I mean, either way, bad scene for her because I'm pretty sure directly after this, she gets tortured to death by Jughead's mom.
Yeah. Very bold introductory scene with this character we've never met before.
Where she just picks up a knife and she's like, oh, me and Penny are gonna have a talk, which...
And then later, I don't think Penny will be a problem anymore.
And
so,
she's like
woo.
washing massive amounts of blood out of her hands.
Yes.
Ooh.
There was literally like, Jughead's mom has her hands covered in blood. And if you're Jellybean, you're just like, my actions led directly to someone's death. Also, my mom is a monster. This is a lot to handle.
Oh, come on. Like, Jellybean hasn't contributed to someone's death before.
That's how you get to be cool. There is just shitloads of capture and torture in this episode.
Yeah, because right after this, Betty and Ethel capture Sister Woodhouse and make her confess about like where Griffins and Gargoyles came from.
Yeah, that was a scene. They pretty much just like Betty uses a sharpened paintbrush to threaten Sister Woodhouse and drag her down to the cellars where they have her tied up to a chair. She confesses everything, they leave her locked up, and their plan is we're gonna bust everyone out of the asylum. The thing is, they also talk about how, the Blossom family is working to deliver drugs here, Hiram's testing them, and I guess my thing is he has to be the super big evil person in this show. Otherwise, they have to introduce some completely different character who's pulling the strings, but every single thing points to it being him. Is there even a mystery left?
I don't know. Probably not. Like, he's already enslaving towns. Later in the same episode, he's like, I just want to create a kingdom where I can rule over everyone.
What do you really want, Daddy?
What every king wants. A kingdom. And a legacy.
So, I don't know how you introduce another villain at this point.
I hope that Sister Woodhouse is the one actually pulling all the strings. Like, she's the one traipsing around dressed up as the Gargoyle King at night, and she actually controls all of Hiram's actions. That's what I would like.
He seems to be running a lot of stuff. The Gargoyle King is a figurehead, and at this point, does it matter who the Gargoyle King is?
Not really.
I also, I guess maybe I'm skipping ahead, but no, I don't think so. So when they show Ethel just in front of the gargoyle, the statue gargoyle that's in the rectory or whatever it is, and it's just like a regular gargoyle statue. Like, Google gargoyle and that's what you're going to find. How did Gargoyle King, the like large life-size version, become like a weird forest creature?
Yes, so specific, and everyone has the same hallucination.
I like the design of the Gargoyle King with this cow skull twig stuff, but you're absolutely right. It's not a gargoyle, and where did this come from when the whole explanation for Griffins and Gargoyles is, we used to lock girls in here for punishment, and they came up with this game based around this stock gargoyle statue.
Right. How is it now a tree monster?
I guess just like in fanfiction, it follows teenage girls to invent a better version of what the creators are originally putting out there.
Yeah, that's fair. That is fair.
The costuming department and props went off book on this one. And someone said, okay, that's pretty cool, let's keep it. But it doesn't make sense. I don't care.
And this leads to Betty and Ethel kind of brainstorm and figure out that they can give the inmates hope if they come up with the Griffin Queen as like a good counterforce to the Gargoyle King who can inspire them to break out.
This show does have this sort of weird flaw where at first they go to all the inmates who are brainwashed and say, hey, you guys should leave. And they're like, no, we want to stay. We fucking like it here. We're high off our ass all the time. It's dope. And then they, like, Betty and Ethel turn their backs like it's a cartoon and whisper conspiratorially to each other like, we just have to make them think it's part of the game to leave. Yes, these girls are mentally disturbed, which is augmented by the drug use, but there's a difference between someone has some sort of psychological disorder and someone's as stupid as Elmer Fudd. The people would see through this of, that thing you were trying to get us to do before, you're trying to trick us into doing that. But it works.
I don't know. None of this storyline really makes sense to me in terms of like how the hallucinations work and how aware any of the girls are, and boys are apparently. It doesn't really hold water. It's not that logical to me.
No, it's completely illogical because, yes, they got Sister Woodhouse locked up in the rectory, which I'm going to steal the use of that fantastic word, Sarah. They have her locked up, but we also know from previous episodes there's A, just a crap load of other nuns running around, and B, there's these really imposing dudes in white jumpsuits who physically restrain the girls, but I guess they all took the night off. Because Betty and Ethel are just able to hold assemblies and run rampant, and they eventually break everyone out of the asylum, and there's no scene of like, oh, we've got to work to do this. It's just, hey, Betty's the Griffin Queen, everyone follow her, and they literally stroll out of the front gates.
As always, this show's understanding of tension is incredible.
It has an understanding of tension. That's news to me.
Exactly.
I love that this scene is juxtaposed with Veronica confronting Hiram, where he's like, oh, all that stuff you said at the school assembly about how I'm like building a drug lab and doing all that stuff, you were absolutely right. I'm super evil.
And I'm so proud of you figuring it out. Want to like rule by my side in my kingdom?
And then he gets super creepy when he's like, Veronica, I haven't seen you wear pearls in a while. Maybe you'll start wearing them again. And I was just like, this took a really gross turn. I hated that line. It's disgusting. The only saving grace was when Veronica was like, you're not untouchable, except maybe in Riverdale because your wife's the mayor and there's no sheriff. And she peters off, but I would have loved if it kept going like everyone's in your pocket. You also seem to have control of several towns across New York. You presumably have connections that go all the way to the top of state legislature, if not national government. And you know what? Rethinking this, I think you're going to get away with it.
Yeah.
You appear to have the power to teleport at will to different locations across the state and country.
Right after this is my favorite scene where Betty calls Veronica to tell her what's happening, and Veronica just kind of implies that no one has been looking for Betty since she disappeared. Just, Betty, girl, where have you been? We all just assumed you were at the farm.
We never checked. Kind of stopped texting you after.
No one asked Evelyn.
What? Like, they're supposed to be her friends. Sure, like, Jughead was gallivanting off with Archie, which, specious reasons at best to choose Archie over Betty. But still, at least he had some sort of excuse. No one who was left in town had any excuse for not following up with her.
Yeah. And this is also where you learn that Cheryl was once in a gay conversion ward at the Sisters of Quiet Mercy. And I really hope this was actually explored during season 2, because it otherwise feels very out of left field to be like, oh my god, we have to save all of these people from this stupid made-up game. Also, gay conversion, which is a real thing that is horrifying in real life, we should maybe save those people too that we haven't focused on.
I think it was a real thing because they mentioned in the previous episode that Veronica had busted Cheryl out. So I believe there was probably, they spent half an episode on it last season.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But what is the thing where, like, Betty calls them and says, oh, the drug stuff is also tied to the Blossoms. They're the ones who are shipping in drug supplies to test on the inmates. And that's where Cheryl and Veronica get the awesome idea to follow this episode's theme and do some torturing of their own.
Yes. Oh, I just have to call attention to the great line where Cheryl decides to team up with Veronica. I am with you, Veronica. My vixens have fallen. My TT has fallen.
With pleasure, Veronica. My vixens have fallen. My TT has fallen.
I just have to say, my TT has fallen. Classic sequel to everyone's favorite film, Olympus Has Fallen.
I also really enjoy during the torture scene where Cheryl calls her mom a ghoulmatic, like instead of a lunatic.
Yeah, is that a portmanteau of ghoul and lunatic?
Yes.
I guess.
Okay, I didn't have subtitles on. You guys did. I just was hearing with my stupid ears.
Oh yeah, that's how they spelled it too, like ghoulmatic. And yeah, that was the choice.
They syrup board Penelope Blossom.
They have her chained to this chair or something, and they're dumping what looks like glycerin all over her. And then she does all this creepy shit where she's like licking her lips, and they have lizard monster sound effects for it.
It's literally like, I don't know how dated this reference is, but in the 4th Harry Potter movie where The villain just like has this creepy like lip lick motion. It's like almost the same motion.
Yeah, it's every time you've ever seen a villain do an exaggerated lick lip, like Hannibal Lecter about to devour Ray Liotta's brains in whichever movie that was, sort of vibes. And also, Cheryl accuses her mom of being involved in running prostitution stuff, which, when did this come up?
I don't know.
The whole scene is weird. It's just like Penelope soaking wet, and they also, of course, because it's Riverdale, and they can't go a second without doing this, they have the lady who's getting doused and stuff in the most like low-cut dress she's ever worn on the show, because restraint is not in the Riverdale lexicon.
No.
It's and okay, so here's the thing I was thinking about in this scene. Tony's just agreed to move into Thornhill. Where was she in this scene?
That's a good question. Maybe we should look into that, do some digging, and see if a scene might come up to explain.
You know, it's funny you ask, because there was a scene that they were going to do like a Marvel thing and have it play after the credits to explain this as like teaser for the next episode, but because of TV runtimes, they had to cut it. I was able to get my hands on it. I've got some people on the inside, so we can actually listen to this scene.
Hey, Cheryl, can we talk?
Sure thing, TT. I'm so happy you're moving all your stuff in. I'm just all fritters and muffins over you, my little pumpkin dove.
Yeah, about that. The other night I heard some weird noises, so I started going downstairs.
Oh no, did you have an icky, grody little nightmare? Or was Great-Grandpa Blossom's ghost howling again?
What? No, I just saw you and Veronica in the September parlor. It looked like you had your mom chained to a chair and you were dumping buckets of something on her.
Oh, that was nothing to worry your sweet little noggin about, you little periwinkle princess. Just fun Blossom stuff. Syrup showers. They're great for the skin.
You threatened to drown her and let her get eaten by insects.
I told you, those were just rumors. None of it is true. Oh, you said insects.
Look, I'm just not so sure this is a good idea. This morning the shower rained blood, crows are always circling the spires, and doors keep slamming out of nowhere in this place.
I know, it's all so fast, and we're still in high school, so this is a strangely adult decision. But you should stay. I promise Thornhill just takes some getting used to.
I don't think you're hearing me. The movers are still here. I could just have them put the boxes back on the truck.
Hey, boss, where yous want this dresser? There's a room full of caskets on the 3rd floor, a padded cell down the hall, and downstairs. Funny thing, those stairs just seem to keep going down. Forever.
Cheryl, there isn't even a roof on this half of the place. You set it on fire 6 months ago. Is it even safe to live here?
Rhett, mind if I smoke in here? Whole place smells like a campfire, so what'll it hurt, you know?
But you can't leave, Snuggle Puggle. My 4-poster bed is your 4-poster bed.
That reminds me, when I have them move my stuff out, I'm taking 2 of the posts. That was enlightening. I have to say that insects wordplay was way funnier than anything we've had on the show before.
Would you believe the writers put that line down and then realized that it could be turned into a joke just this morning?
I believe
Amazing.
so. I'm so glad that the actor didn't go with their first thought of just switching it to ants, because that would have really ruined the wordplay.
That would have destroyed everything. So I don't think that Tony and Cheryl are going to last under this roof. They were probably doing better out in that tent.
Under what roof?
True. I mean, we've seen earlier in the season when they had this establishing shot of Thornhill that is kind of skeletal in places and looks like it's crumbling down. Like, it looks like the Notre Dame Cathedral is in Paris after the destructive fire.
Yeah.
So I don't know how anyone's living there, but it's a great place for torture.
Oh, yeah.
Bless you.
That's my contribution.
Where was I in my notes?
Luke Perry and FP showing up to the junkyard to collect their sons.
Yeah, because Gina Gershon tries to convince Jughead to cut ties with Archie because anywhere he goes, trouble's bound to follow because he's a bumbling idiot. And she correctly points out that Jughead's wasting his fucking time playing Griffins and Gargoyles instead of running the Serpents and doing cool stuff to resist Hiram. And he should, because he's the gang leader, be back in Riverdale.
Yeah.
So Jellybean and Jughead's mom are the two smartest characters on the show, and I really hope we actually get more of them.
That would be nice.
I really love when FP shows up and says, "Can I get a hug?" And she says, "Can I get a dad?"
Oh,
Sick burn.
I meant to clip that line and then put a bunch of people owing like after a sick burn on a TV show.
Yeah, Luke Perry shows up because Jughead's mom called Luke Perry an FP, and so we get a Luke Perry sighting. I thought they'd totally written him out of the show.
Yeah, he shows up, helps Archie get to Canada, which I'm really excited about. I'm really fine with sending Archie to Canada, and I think we should have Veronica follow him and then not show any of that.
Yeah, how is Veronica's plot in this episode as boring as it is? Because I swear to God, we watched this episode before we had like our long break, and we forgot absolutely everything about Veronica's plot. And rewatching it, she does some really insane things, like she's investigating a mass outbreak, investigating drug use, she's syrup boarding Penelope Blossom, tries to overthrow the city government, and
she wears a very shiny turtleneck crop top that I have a lot of problems with.
And all of it is in one ear and out the other. I will probably forget this all again by tomorrow.
Yeah, because I was able to recall Jughead and Archie being at the junkyard. I was able to recall Betty doing the Griffin Queen stuff, which was pretty bland and a letdown after the last episode. But for the life of me, I was like, Veronica was in this, I know, because I recall rolling my eyes as I watched it. I know there were times where I exclaimed loud at the screen, as I want to do, but I couldn't even think of what she was actually doing in this episode because she's mostly hemming and hawing, and the only time something happens is when Cheryl's like, "We should surfboard my mom." Veronica can't seem to actually do actions on the show without a way cooler character taking the lead in this scene.
True.
Part of it is bad writing. Part of it is just not a good performer.
Yeah, because the actions themselves should be memorable. They shouldn't be this forgettable on paper.
It's the thing, if you could have the most exciting storyline in the world, but if you have a boring, unrelatable character, then it drags that down into the mud. And that's what we have most of the time with Archie and Veronica, so hopefully Archie goes so far north that he ends up on a completely different TV show, and we can all move on.
Mm-hmm.
He finally dyes his hair brown to blend in.
Finally taking my advice. Took him long enough.
I know, the easiest thing anyone does when they go on the lam, and it like just occurred to him once he's like almost out of anyone's clutches.
Right, he's like, oh right, I have super distinctive hair. I should probably do something about that.
My other favorite part of this episode is while this is happening at the junkyard, Cheryl and Veronica go to recruit the RROTC to help overthrow Hermione as the mayor. And at first the cadets are all like, I don't know if we should. But then Cheryl just steps on top of the table with those amazing high heels and those really great hot pants, and they're like, oh, she's got legs, what can we do?
She's got legs. I'm just thinking of like the ZZ Top song playing at that exact moment now. Which, I mean, these kids are all high off their ass and they're living off this free fizzle rock stuff, so I don't think they'd want to help put an end to it at all. But hey,
Yeah.
Cheryl's very convincing, and their plan is to have several unarmed youths storm into the mayor's office and say, we're having a coup. You're no longer mayor.
Yes, Veronica says, consider it a coup de moi, and I have to say, I will not.
Yeah, that was some of the worst wordplay I've ever heard.
I'd repressed my memory of that line until you said it, and then I could hear it in Veronica's voice.
Ugh.
And I felt pain again. This is
Sorry to bring up that painful memory for you.
proof that I'm alive.
But dead on the inside.
Yes. But Hermione's like, the order already went out. You're too late. And we're on such a cliffhanger as FP and Jughead ride up on their motorcycles to the town outskirts where they're faced with a roadblock and armed policemen who should probably be dealing with the uprising at the mayor's office.
Yeah, I have so many questions, because the way this scene is cut seems to imply that, like, Jughead and FP left Toledo, like, at dusk or a little later, and are suddenly back at Riverdale by, like, I don't know, 9:30?
It is not that close at all.
No.
I don't care where they are in New York. It's not that close.
No, 6 months ago, I drove cross country when I moved from California to New York, and it was straight driving, 14 or so hours between mid-Ohio and New York.
That sounds about right.
So, Hey, they go real fast on their Harleys. When there's a quarantine roadblock, I don't get why when Jughead and FP are like, wait, why is there a roadblock? We live here. The instant reaction of the police isn't to explain the situation to a citizen as they would and should do. It's for like 6 guys to raise shotguns and rack them and point them at Jughead and FP, which, no, that's not how that would work. You'd have like 2 cop cars at the roadblock explaining to people, hey, road's closed. You're gonna have to detour around.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like military lockdown, apparently, up in here while everyone's breaking out of the asylum.
Yeah, it's just an endless stream of like 150 wayward youths. And Alice shows up in like a Mini Cooper, like, oh, I don't think I can fit all of you.
Yeah, because Alice shows up coincidentally, and Betty's like, I broke all these people out. And she's like, we have to help them. And I wanted Alice to look directly at the camera and say, we're going to need a bigger car.
I would seriously watch the spin-off show where Alice and Betty have to care for all of them, though.
Because Ethel said previously, what are we going to do when we break all these kids out? And Betty's like, silly Ethel, always thinking ahead. This is Riverdale.
At my house.
And they don't even address it because that's when the, I guess, contagion sirens go off, which is just like an air raid alarm that they've converted. And Betty's like, I think we have bigger problems than this now.
Yeah.
What gave it away, Betty?
And it's just funny to watch this episode in the context of what's currently happening in the world and to be like, okay, so they didn't shut down school. They don't seem to have shut down any public spaces. No one's working from home.
No social distancing.
What they have done is just armed roadblocks. Like, that's not how any of this actually works. And it's just funny to see them try to figure out how it might work and fail so miserably.
They fail miserably at basically everything on this show. It's pretty much a swing and a miss. And my first thought when I see FP and Jughead at the roadblock is, this is a non-issue because A, they're on motorcycles, and an episode or 2 ago during the prison break, we saw Betty riding a motorcycle down dirt tracks through the woods. So FP and Jughead will be able to sneak around this in 2 shakes of a lamb's tail. So there wasn't a lot of suspense there for me.
No, I had the same thought. I was like, oh, okay, well, they don't need to get in through the roads. Duh.
Yeah.
But Hiram just says evil stuff. And, oh my god, the best/worst part of this episode is the ending monologue. I fell in love with this because this time, Riverdale has changed.
Oh my goodness, that's never happened before.
I have to go back, and I couldn't get my dick up to do this yesterday when I rewatched this episode because I was so unenamored with it. But I need to go back to every closing monologue or opening monologue from Jughead and clip together how many times he's like, this time the town's changed irrevocably.
We'd all be feeling it. That the world around us had changed. Maybe forever. Guilt, innocence, good, evil, life, death. As the shadows around Riverdale deepened, the lines that separated these polar opposites blurred and distorted. With Sheriff Keller knocking on every door, and neighbor suspecting neighbor, Riverdale, every day that passes, is becoming more like Salem during the witch trials. As much as we wanted Jason's killer caught, and the town, our home, to feel safe again, with every day that passed, our hopes dimmed more and more. People like to say that the death of Jason Blossom changed everything at Riverdale High. People will look back at this as the exact moment that last bit of Riverdale's innocence finally died, when darkness won. A deadly, mutating virus had been introduced to the ecosystem of Riverdale, and it was spreading like an epidemic. And just like that, in a few frantic moments, the town we'd known all our lives was once again changed. But this time, irrevocably.
I just like how it also ends with Hiram calling the governor to thank him for giving him permission to shut down the town. And sure, I guess that's how quarantine works. The governor of New York calls a random businessman and says, hey, good luck with that whole town closure.
Right? Like, he's not even talking to the mayor. He's talking to this businessman. Okay, sure.
The governor is also very confusingly named. It's Governor Dooley, which I misheard as Doily the first time and was very thrown off.
When did they say his name?
I only caught it in the second viewing thanks to the subtitles.
Yeah, Hiram says his name when he's on the phone with him.
Before that, I was going to assume it was Governor Andrew Cuomo.
All I heard was, I'm evil bad guy. I did a quarantine. I'm the king. And then he hung up. Which, that's how you end a fucking Riverdale episode. The town's changed. Someone does an evil thing. That's just, that's their pattern. We have a pattern on this show. We do an opening, we get into the episode, we wrap it up, we do cringe lines. Every time on episode, the town irrevocably changes.
But this time, our podcast has changed.
Forever.
Irrevocably. The last shreds of innocence were gone. I'm going to have so much fun cutting that together.
Fun or pain?
I mean, at least I won't have to skip around in the episodes. I'll just be able to go to like the first 30 seconds and last 30 seconds.
True.
Yeah.
Wrap up for this is Riverdale is under quarantine lockdown. Archie is going alone to Canada. Betty is free from the asylum, so they held on to that plot as long as they could. And Jughead's mom is a fucking murderer who does tortures.
Yeah. It's what I always said she'd be, you guys.
But she's really cool, also.
Yeah, she's really cool. Penny's dead, so that villain who was set up in the first episode of this season as we're going to have a gang war, they literally never followed that up.
Is she dead?
Unclear. Who knows with Riverdale, but like it seems to implicate that she is at the very least.
I mean, I get that they were posing that as a possibility. I just don't trust the show enough to have any real idea.
It is so weird that like what seemed like the clearest initial thread from the first episode, gang war, is something that literally they never came back to, has no relevance to anything that's going on. Those first scenes in that first episode may as well have never happened for all the relevance they've had.
Actually, I think this is a good time. Can we kind of come up with all the different plots that they've introduced in this season of Riverdale that have either been wrapped up in 2 winks or have just fallen by the wayside? Because there was...
That is all of the plots, Hunter.
But there's like all these things that have happened. We're on episode 8. We've already had gang war has come and gone. Archie being in prison has come and gone. Betty being locked up in an insane asylum has come and gone. And Jughead being
Veronica
obsessed...
wanting to move out. Jughead's madness. Griffins and Gargoyles is kind of gone too.
Yeah, because in this episode, they're pretty much like, that game didn't matter anyway. It was all a red herring. So you've been obsessing over the wrong thing. No one is giving a shit about rune symbols and Dilton Doiley's death. So it's not a season arc that we have for this show. We just have a bunch of 2-episode arcs. And then they're like, we should throw the characters into an entirely new situation.
Yeah. And I mean, some of them could come back. It wouldn't surprise me if there was another gang war thing, for instance. Like, I feel like that's probably, a thing they're going to bring up repeatedly. But who knows? I could be wrong.
I just want Mad Dog back. That's all I care about.
Me too.
If they have any skill in writing at all, the way they'll do this is the Ghoulies and the Serpents will team up to take down the Gargoyles, and that will be the gang war. Do I think that's how it will happen? No.
We can't predict it. I refuse to do any sort of predictions other than to say, I mean, I think Penny's actually dead.
Okay.
I won't be surprised when I'm inevitably wrong, but I just hope that they at least don't pull the stupid like soap opera like you thought they were dead, they were alive the whole time.
Yeah.
There are some cringy ass lines in this episode. Do you guys have something we didn't talk about?
I don't think so. Let me double check real quick. Nope.
Yeah, we talked about all of the really bad ones for sure.
Yeah, I'm Cuckoo Bananas for You Obvi is my hands down pick.
Yes, in that same scene with the Cuckoo Bananas and my 4-poster bed is your 4-poster bed, Cheryl also has the French contagion and says, "You, mon petit amour, are officially on bed rest." Because they can't get through a single sentence without her being awful. And then when Veronica and Cheryl storm into the parent-teacher school board meeting thing, she trots up to Hiram and says, "You messed with my squad, which means you messed with me." Because in Cheryl's life of romance, her family being fucking crime lords, her dead father and brother, and being part of a gang, her cheerleading squad's the most important thing. Where do you go from here, Riverdale?
I don't know. I'm going to give this episode 2 out of 5 slingshots to the head.
You gave it a more kind score than me, because mine was... Oh man, I don't have a good score for this written down. I totally forgot about this. Give me 1 second.
I guess I'll do mine. I'm going to say 2 out of 5 coup de mois.
Oh, God.
I'll go with 1 out of 4 posts on the 4-poster bed.
Oh, no. That's the lowest number of posts on a poster bed.
It's a single poster bed, and the post is right in the middle, so it's just a really shitty bed.
Like you've staked the bed to the floor.
Yes. This episode,
carousel.
This episode sucked. I just want to... Let's have another flashback episode or something.
Yeah, I think the only episode we disliked more than this, I know you liked it better than we did Hunter, but there was that one really dull episode like 2 or 3 recordings ago. I'm blanking on the title right now.
I'm editing it right now. I think it's episode 5 of season 3. And honestly, for the life of me, even though I was editing it a day or 2 ago, can't remember what happened in it.
Yeah, I just remember it was so boring and hard to get through. Like, the saving grace of this episode is even though not a lot interesting happened, I didn't have a hard time getting through it or watching it.
There was action. That one episode just had it was all people talking about what had happened or what might happen.
Yeah, that was, I think, the prison break episode where Archie got out of jail.
Was it?
I know it's the one that has
Maybe.
at the end the Scream reference. Like the thing where there's the popcorn and then Skeet Ulrich breaks into the...
No, then it wasn't
window.
the prison break one. It was
No.
the next one after that where... It was the one where Archie's like, I have to run and leave Riverdale, and he finds the dead bodies in the mine
Yes.
shaft.
Yes.
Oh,
And
God,
then
it's
it's
so
like,
dull.
Veronica, I'm breaking up with you. Wow, we got through this episode. I hope the next one's better. But thank you for listening to Gritty Reboot. Make sure to subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts.
Make sure to
Spotify.
describe us on Apple Podcasts.
I'm an idiot. Make sure to subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Also, leave a review because it really helps us grow.
Next week, we'll be discussing Riverdale Season 3, Episode 9, No Exit.
In the meantime, you can catch us on Twitter at @GrittyRebootPod or by email at grittyrebootpodcast@gmail.com. You can also check out our website, grittyrebootpodcast.com, for info about the show, past episodes, and upcoming news. We look forward to seeing you next time.